Welcome to A Seat at the Table, where real stories and honest conversations have a place. I am your host, Stephanie. Tonight's episode is called Purpose After Pain. Many of us have experienced moments that hurt us, changed us, and made us question how we will move forward. But pain does not always get the final word. Sometimes the very thing that tried to break us becomes part of the story that helped us heal, grow, and serve others. Tonight, I am joined by three amazing people who have agreed to pull up a chair to the table and share their story. Welcome, Brandon, Rita, and Mesha. Hi, guys. How you guys doing tonight?
Oh,
How
well,
are
hope you
you?
uh,
Thank you guys for joining me at the table. Do you mind reintroducing yourself and sharing a little bit about yourself? And I'll start with Brandon.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Brandon Crowd. I'm the founder of the Awaken Crowd. I am a holistic and intuitive energy guide. I have my background in metaphysical science, and I love helping people reconnect with their true self, who they really are. My work involves doing a lot of inner child healing, a lot of nervous system resetting, and working with people from an energetic perspective in, again, reminding and figuring out their true self and getting back to their soul purpose for being here. And it's an honor to be here with you all and looking forward to having this conversation.
Thank you so much, Brandon. Misha, do you mind sharing a little bit about yourself?
sure. I am Mesha McLean. I am a lupus warrior and a chronic illness advocate. I am also the founder of Fight of the Butterfly Movement. We are an organization that connects chronic illness warriors with resources needed to survive and thrive.
Thank you. And Rita, do you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, I'm Rita Taylor. I am, me and my husband are the founders of The Other Side Toss um, Productions. Uh, I'm a beauty influencer and I'm an author and
Okay.
professor, a warrior. I can go on.
Okay. Hey, I'm realizing that in today's time, we wear a lot of hats. So I
Mhm.
definitely understand that. Tonight, Brandon will be serving as a guest, but he'll also be giving us some of his expertise in some of the areas that we will be talking about. So before we get started and jumping into the conversation, I like to do a warm-up question for my guests. So my question to you guys is, when you hear the phrase purpose after pain, what does it mean to you personally? And I'll start with Rita.
When I hear purpose after pain, wow, that not giving up, that God has created you to be here because there's a purpose for your life. There's a perfect purpose for your voice. There's a sound that is attached to others that can bring them out because there's a purpose even for your pain, even for going through your process and experiencing what you had to experience, that you have a story to tell because we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony.
Right.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Um,
Misha?
I completely agree with Sister Rita. Yes, it is all about your testimony, the things that God has brought you through, so that you can share that and give a light to others and encourage them as well. It's all about that testimony.
Okay. Brandon?
Yes, Rita, that was beautifully said. Purpose after pain is, we all go through this journey and we do it partly on ourselves, we do it with those around us, and we don't go through anything that God doesn't want us to go through. And part of what we go through is to be able to be there in service for others and to help them. And taking what we learned is just part of the path, and being able to be a teacher and a steward for others in the journey that we have gone through, and being able to really be there for others, I really feel like is part of the pain process. And there's just so much more purpose after that. The pain is short and it stings and it can hurt a lot, but it's what you do after that with the pain. What do you become for yourself and for others after that?
Okay.
I love the way you guys all connected on the level of putting God in it, right? Through God, with God, everything is possible. When I thought about the topic purpose after pain, a lot of things came to my mind, but the biggest thing that came to my mind is just not giving up and knowing that what you experiencing will help somebody else, and there is purpose for the pain. A lot of people may look at me and say, how is there purpose for the pain? But I always look at things like they say, the glass is half full, half empty, right? So I'm gonna look at it as a half full scenario of what I'm going through. I have to go through it because it's something I even need to learn from it, or what I'm getting ready to go through is going to be my mission to help someone else not to go through it or to help them get through it. So I love the way you all connected God to that, and know that it's not that you're just stopping it. It's just a stagnant point. You want to get through it and you're going to keep on pushing. So I love that. I love that. So take us back to the beginning. What happened and how did the experience change your life? I would like for you guys to share a little bit about a time that you've been through something where you found the purpose after pain. And I'll start with Mesha.
Okay, that's the story of my life for the last few years. In 2022, I found myself in the ICU of my local hospital, um, fighting for my life, literally. I had been diagnosed with a chronic illness that had begun to attack my body, causing bruises, hair loss, ulcers, and I was also facing stage 3 chronic kidney disease. I didn't know what to expect, what it entailed, had also began to dislike the reflection of myself in the mirror due to all the physical changes. I was what folks would call a baddie back in my A day. And lupus had began to attack my body so much I didn't even recognize myself when I looked in the mirror. Um, and through that, through fasting and praying, and also the prayers of my family and my church, I began to heal. In that healing, I realized that healing isn't just about the physical, but it's also that mindset. So I quickly realized that that diagnosis does not define who I am. It doesn't define my self-worth. So now I have channeled that. Since I have begun my healing process, I'm telling other chronic illness warriors that your diagnosis does not define you either. You are still worthy, you are still beautiful, you are still somebody. So I have become a champion for chronic illness. I have started my advocacy journey and also use pageantry as a way to do that, to help shed a light to other chronic illness warriors, to remind them, yes, we are still who we are. We might not look the same, but we are still.
I love it. And for the record, you still are a baddie, okay? So just want to put that disclosure out there.
Thank you.
Rita, can you tell us a little bit about your story?
My story is finding even the purpose after pain. My son was murdered in 22 September the 22nd 20 I'm sorry September no September yeah 22nd or 24th no 24th 2022. My son was murdered in Washington D.C. I was out of town when he got murdered. Some time back before his death, he asked me a question, and the question was, if something happened to me, what would you do? So I stood back and I looked, because I was standing on the step and he was on the step in the hole. And I said, like, why would you ask me that? I'm thinking that. And I looked at him and I said, I'ma live. And he said, for real? And I said, yeah, I'ma live. He said, but I'm your only son. And I said, I know. But as time went on, I realized that I wasn't living, I was existing. The Lord had took me to a scripture in the Bible, and just to fast forward, it talked about if you're not living in faith, then you living in sin. And so I realized when he died, it had left a hole in my heart. Even though I was still existing and still moving and still going, my dreams was gone. My vision, my hope, everything, it just seemed like it just left. And so it was just like picking up the pieces and going through a healing process that God had to take me on a journey. So I'll put a pin right there so you can ask another question.
Thank you so much for sharing, and we do send out our condolences about your son. Know that I know that cross to bear. Brandon, would you mind sharing a little bit?
Sure. So, kind of two journeys for me, and one being born and raised Catholic, and then going through a massive spiritual awakening once my son was born, and having a remembrance of things that I was able to do and feel as a kid that I suppressed for almost 30 years, and taking my son being born to remember my true purpose while being here. And that can go one of two ways for people. And a lot of times that can lead down a very dark and depressing road. And thankfully, I had people to support me and to be there for me through that. And that was one of the main reasons why I felt called to go and be there for people from a coaching perspective myself, is because it can be a very scary road when you go inward. When you go inward, heal and to reconnect with yourself. In today's society, we're so disconnected from ourselves because we seek external validation with everything. And we judge ourselves based on how others judge us. And one of the biggest things that I do through coaching is helping people to disassociate with the validation externally and being true to themselves and what they truly want and how they truly feel, and helping them through those dark times of that. Because the uh, the healing process is, however old you are when you decide to make this journey inward. And it can be 30 years, 40 years of just things that have just snowballed. And so that healing process can be very painful sometimes. And it's an honor to be able to hold that space for people in that. The second part to that is, my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer about a year and a half ago, and went through 3 surgeries in a 12-month process. And being there for her in that, obviously caught off guard at 41 years old to get that diagnosis. Thankfully, everything is great. But that's a journey that she is going through, that I'm going through with her, that our son is going through with her. And it's one of those things to where, I talked with her one night and said, what if, you, God gave you this to go through, knowing that you were going to be okay. But she has become an advocate for other women that is going through this. I would say it twice a week. She is on the phone with somebody because someone that she knows someone that is recently diagnosed, and has said, you need to talk to Lindsay. And I go, Linz, that is, what if that's your purpose? Is you went through this everything fine, and we don't know that, right? But that very well could be. We're so quick to negatively go into the outcomes. And the universe mirrors things back to us. If you mirror out positive will come back. And so that is one of the things that, even working with her, and it's not easy. It's not an easy concept, because we're so quick to go to the negative outcomes in our minds. And so if we can switch that with people, the outcomes are so much greater. So that's my story. Thank you all for being vulnerable to share your stories as well.
And we
Absolutely.
thank you for the Lindsays in the world that's able to go back and give after she been through that experience. Because sometimes just reliving experiences can be triggering, but for her, she's giving back and she's giving hope to others. So we're very thankful for Lindsay and the work that she's doing. A little bit about my purpose after pain. I too, like Rita, has lost a son. He was 21 years old. He died in a tragic car accident. It was him and 4 friends. They were all in the car. Everybody passed away except for one friend. So the pain, finding purpose after that, It took a lot because, again, like Rita said, I can relate to her saying I was existing and not living, because I had other children. So I couldn't grieve. I couldn't do these things because if I break down and I'm the foundation, then it crumbles, right? We're told if there's a crack in the foundation, everything falls. So I had to be there for all of the children, and it wasn't until probably like I was a robot, like you said, existing, right? Getting up, going to work, coming home. I would come home from work. And thank God that my children were like teenagers. So they needed me, but they didn't need me, like a younger child. Didn't have to worry about coming home cooking dinner, right? Everybody can fend for themselves and things like that. Although I should have been cooking them because that's what moms do, right? We cook dinner. And I would come home and be under the cover, work, home, cover over my head, work, home, cover over my head. And so one day I realized, like, girl, you need some help. And so that's when the mental health piece comes in, and I decided to go to therapy and get what I needed. But for a year straight, that's what I did. And it wasn't until a year later, I think one of the kids found me in the bathroom, balled up in a ball, crying, having that moment that I never had. Even my oldest daughter, she didn't crack until a year later because she felt like I had to be there for mom and I have to be there for my siblings, right? So I couldn't crack. And it wasn't until her birthday that she cracked. And I think she cracked before me. And that's when I knew I needed help. That's when I knew I needed help. Because not only am I not there, I'm not being no good for myself, but I wasn't no good for the children because it became a conversation you tend to avoid, you know. So just finding the purpose after the pain was, I said, God, when I got the call that my son died, I was at work. I was at work. And I work with children. And I remember wanting to cry, scream, yell, cuss, fuss, say, I don't know what I wanted. I remember just feeling a million emotions, right? And I remember just stopping and praying in the middle of that. Like, God, be with me. God, you told me that, and I guess my coworkers probably was looking at me kind of crazy. Your son just died. You're standing here, and this is what you're praying. But that's all I had. That's all I had. Had I not had that prayer that day, I probably wouldn't be here right now. Had I not been at work, I probably wouldn't be here right now because who knows what you would do when you're by yourself and you're getting that type of information. So I definitely understand and can relate to Rita and what she's been through. I think when we talked, it was just like I'm talking to myself like we've been through some of the same things. So I definitely understand. So again, thank you guys for sharing. Thank you guys being vulnerable enough to share your story here at the table. What was the moment when you realized you could not continue handling the pain the way you were handling it, and you decided that you needed to do something with it? And I'll start with Brandon.
So for me, it was one of these kind of rabbit hole type experiences where I just started questioning everything, from myself to the things that I believed in. My traditional education background is very heavily focused on political science. I have an undergrad, master's, and even did a PhD work in that area of things. And between that and religion and existence, I just went through like this massive questioning everything. And when you start to do that, it can get, like I mentioned a little while ago, it can get a little dark sometimes. And it was one of those things where I wanted to continue that questioning journey and find my truths. And at the same time, not wanting to cave and give into the mental depression and side of things that can come with that. So I empowered myself to find my truths while also building the strength to take on new challenges. I went from corporate America 20 years to becoming self-employed and an entrepreneur, and just find the passion within myself to keep going versus again going and being judged or being criticized and letting the external things impact me. And that was one of the biggest eye-opening things, was remembering how strong I am on my own and within myself to continue that fight from a completely different perspective and a lot stronger perspective.
One of the things I heard you say is that it can get pretty dark. And I think we all can agree with that. When you're going through something that's so traumatizing, it can get pretty dark no matter how much faith you have. It sometimes you can't see the light. You see the darkness, but you can't see the light, right? And I think sometimes again that is just as you said, a path that we're sometimes given to decide, you know how they say you choose good and evil. So in that time, are we going to continue to choose the darkness, or are we going to continue to choose the light? So I think we all can agree that when you're going through something, you can. That's when the biggest choice is made in your life. Do I continue to go down this dark path, or do I continue to fight to see the light? So I agree
Absolutely.
with that.
And one of the things, just a quick follow-up is, you know, it starts with us. And I prove that point by saying, go look in the mirror and demand it to smile first. And I'm curious how long you're going to be standing there. It's going to be a long time if you're waiting. So if you start, you'll be surprised what happens after.
All right, Rita.
Well, for me, you know, we get to the point that it'd be like titles like mother and, sister, friend, and all these titles that we wear, or these functions, I may say, that we function in. But at the end of the day, when you're not functioning in none of that, because the function can sustain you, because that's your everyday routine that you function in. But at the end of the day, who are you? At the end of the day, when the lights go out, because the thing is, you can function, but you can lose yourself in the process as you function. So the question is, who am I? Who am I? What type of person am I? Who am I? When everybody's gone, when there's nobody there, and who am I? Because you get to that point where you struggle, and you begin to question yourself. You begin to question yourself. Like for me, even for my son, you begin to question yourself. What if I could have? Or what if the what ifs come up, the what, the who, the where, the when, the why, the how. Those questions begin to ring. Those questions begin to rise up. And you begin to wonder, what happened? How did I miss this? What? You begin to question, and you begin, wait a minute. Who am I? Who am I? What happened? I mean, where did everything go? What I'm not understanding this. You begin to go through this phase. You begin to go through this phase, even in your grieving process, where you begin to question again the who, the what, the where, the why, the how, and the when. You begin to question that, and you begin to wonder. And then it's like you done lost yourself. You continue to function, but really you done lost who you are. You done lost who God has made you. You done lost that person. What happened to that person that was sweet, that was loving? What happened to that person? Because you begin, that it's like the attitudes, the anger, everything begin to rise. Because when something been taken from you, don't nobody know that pain. That leaves a deep hole in your heart.
And one thing I want to say is I hear everything that you're saying, and it's taking me back to a place to another episode I did with someone when we were talking about life after grieving.
Mm,
And one thing I learned during that episode was you don't always grieve for everything that's dead. Sometimes we're grieving for the living. And I think people hear grief and they feel like, oh, it's mean, it's dead. No, you're not always grieving for things that dead, things that's dead. You can be grieving in different aspects of your life for different things. And then I also want to say, because I hear you, that I don't think people realize that, and I'm guilty of this. I used to think that if something dies, or so let me just go back and say it this way. When my son died and people said, you'll get through it, it's gonna be okay. You may get through it, but you will not be the same person you was when they walked the earth. You become somebody different, right? So
Right.
then in saying that, it doesn't mean you just become something different when you lose somebody to death. When you grieve something, after you grieve it and you get over it, you do become something different, whether it's dead or alive. And I don't think a lot of people realize that, right? So
Right.
then that's just also finding that purpose after pain. I'm not the same person I was, when he was here. I'm not. Actually, I'm a better version of me. And that may sound weird. Like, how you a better version that your son is gone, but I'm a better version because losing him made me become the better version. Because again, you talk about just existing, right? So now I can't just exist because I have a whole kid who memory I have to honor, who legacy I gotta keep on. Now when I'm out here and I'm grinding to get to my next level in life, I'm not grinding for me, right? Now in my mind, I'm grinding because I'm like, Anthony would have been proud, or if I do this, that's gonna make him proud, or if I do this, I'm gonna honor him. So it
Yeah.
does become, you do become somebody different. So when I hear you, I hear the passion that you're putting out here. I hear you, and I agree with what you're saying. You have to find out who are you, because you're not the same person.
Yeah, you absolutely right. And so every time when I used to get into a certain posture, I just think about what he said. If something happened to me, what would you do? And my answer was, I'ma live. I'ma live because I got 3 daughters. I got to live for them. Not only them, but I got to live for those that went through the same thing that you went through, the same thing that you experienced. I got to live for those mothers that's grieving, that lost their children. I got to live. I
Mhm.
got to live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Misha, would you like to share?
I think my turning point would also be when I was initially diagnosed with kidney disease. I was stage 3 kidney failure, and I was in ICU during this time. Went through a real bad bout of depression, obviously. Again, I didn't really know what to expect with my lupus diagnosis. Both of my children were in high school, and instead of me being the mother, now they were my protectors. They were the one caring for me, coming in and checking on me, getting off the school bus and coming and making sure mom's still alive. So I was in ICU one night, and I was just like, Lord, I really don't want to be here. Not suicidal, nothing like that. I just didn't want to be here. And then all of a sudden, this being just kind of consumed me and just wrapped itself around me. I couldn't move, and I was awake, wide awake, because I remember looking up at, all the monitors and stuff. I was wide awake and I couldn't move and I couldn't speak. And I was like, oh Lord, this, I'm about to go. And I just started praying in my mind, like, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. I kept saying that over and over in my mind, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And then finally I was able to whisper Jesus. And once I heard myself whisper Jesus, that's all it took, because I just kept saying that over and over and over again, whispering until it got louder, louder, and louder. And I finally was able to yell Jesus this one time, and then it just let me go and it released me. And I began to cry because I was like, I was that close to the brink. And then I looked up and then I heard God say, it's not your time. You got work to do. And I was like, okay, Jesus, I hear you loud and clear. You're giving me another chance because I should have been going back in 2022. That was my time right then and there. I wouldn't have seen my children graduate from high school. I wouldn't have been here and walking across stages. I wouldn't be here on this podcast today. But I said, Lord, if you give me one more chance, I'm going to live every day to the fullest. I'm going to do everything that you say that I need to do. So that was my turning point. So I channel all of that pain, all of the depression, all of the anger, the frustration, because when you're going through a chronic illness. Of course, you go through all of the stages and more. You're upset, you're angry, you're sad, you're depressed, and all of those things. I felt that, and now I'm channeling that into others. Like, hey, it's okay to have those feelings, just don't stay there. Make sure that you build your community, and we can go from there. Just don't live in those, that anger and that depression, because that's not where you need to be. God is calling you for greater.
I heard two things. One, you didn't give up. You was determined to fight for your kids, right? Because you knew that you needed to be there for your children. And the second thing I heard was you called on the name Jesus.
Come on.
And it's something about the name Jesus. When you know that I need to call on him, and when you called on him, just hanging on to that, you knew that, and how they say you need the faith of a mustard seed, right? So just having that faith and holding on to that and just believing, it brought you through the time and carried you through that moment when you thought that you couldn't hold on anymore. So
Yes, ma'am. At that time, I've been in the church all my life, so I know scriptures, Genesis to Revelations. At that time, I couldn't think of the Lord's Prayer. I couldn't think of Jabez. I couldn't think of nothing, but I knew Jesus. And that just saying Jesus was the perfect prayer for me at that time, because that was able to release that being from me. So just calling on just that one name has so much power. Like, it's just amazing how just me being able to get that out. I couldn't think of anything else but to call on him. And that's what was finally released that entity from me.
yes. What were you feeling privately that people around you may not have understood? Rita?
Privately, I was like, they just don't understand. They just don't get it. This pain for me, I went through the grieving process, a part of the grieving process before, a year before my son passed. I started going through a grieving process, and nobody knew that. I would be in my room and I would weep and weep and weep and weep, and nobody knew that. Nobody knew how much I weep. Nobody knew that what I experienced and what I was going through. I remember one day my son, he asked me to pray for a court case for him, and I said, okay, I pray. He left out. I got on my knees and I began to pray. And the Lord told me to tell him that it was between him and him. So when he came home, I said, I pray for you. And I said, the Lord told me to tell you that it was between you and him. I said, but also, you need to be careful. I said, because I see somebody going to try to set you up. One of your friends, you need to be careful with your friends and the females. But even in that process of God revealing things, and God, like he said, he will reveal his secrets unto his prophets, right? He will reveal to you what's going to take place, what's going to happen. Certain things we know in part and we prophesy in part. And even in that part, as I begin to pray on the behalf of my son, but the pain that I experienced behind the scenes, the pain was so unbearable. At times it was just heart palpitations for me. It was me going to the hospital. It was just different things that I experienced that I went through. The pain, and me, I'm grieving. My 3 daughters are grieving, and trying to be a mother to console them when I need to console them also. So it was hard to console them. So we all went through our grieving process differently. We all went through our grieving process differently. So the question, even behind the scenes of, okay, like, the mother of wanting to console them, but I was hurting so deeply. And it was very hard to console them when we all were grieving.
Mhm.
So the pain that nobody saw, yeah, I'm gonna put a pin right there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mesha.
I agree too. There was a grieving process. I grieved who I was before my diagnosis. Again, not trying to be vain, but I was a little baddie. And the complete physical change was really that drastic that, again, I did not like looking in the mirror. I didn't like who I had become physically. So I grieved who I was before. And I also experienced some depression, especially church folks. You shouldn't be depressed. You're still alive. You're in the land of the living. All the cliches that we tend to do. But I really was going through depression that a lot of people probably did not realize. Because again, as mothers and even women too, especially, we tend to push through, especially for the sake of our children. We're going to do what we have to do. We want, because there were plenty of times that my children thought that, I'm going to get off the bus and mom's going to be gone, like literally gone. But I'm still smiling. Hey, baby, putting on that front. So I'm depressed, but I'm still trying to show and save face because I don't want my children to become in a depressive state, although they might have had some issues as well. But I had to live and push forward. So just the depression and also the grieving process of myself, of who I used to be. Again, it might sound vain, but you just miss being able to get up and do the things you used to do. I was very active in my children's life. Both of them are in marching band. So where they went, I went. Every Saturday. We were going to some type of competition, the football games, we were there. But there were times when I physically couldn't get up, just could not move to even get to the door, let alone to walk the stadium. So I did miss all of that time that I was able to do those things.
And I don't think you're being vain when you say you was a baddie or things that you miss. You know who you were. You were confident. You was a confident woman in your skin and in your body, right? And you miss who you were. You miss the things that you used to do. You're thankful that you're still here because there's not one
Yeah.
time that you have not said, "I thank God for me being here." You have not showed us how grateful you are, right, for still being here. But it's nothing wrong with missing who you used to be at times or things that you used to do. That's just like a person that lose a lot of weight. Okay, I lost all this weight. I'm healthy now, but of course I miss eating that piece of cake or eating that fried food. I mean, it's that's
Yeah.
life, right? So it's not
Right.
being vain. It's just some things that you moved away from that used to give you pleasure that you wish that you still could do, and it's nothing wrong with that. So don't feel like that. There's nothing wrong with that. Brandon.
Yeah, I before I share my story, I just want to tell Misha there is no such thing as vain when there's a lack of ego and gratitude, and you have immense gratitude, and there is
I
no
love
ego about you, so there is no vainness coming from that. So empower yourself with that notion that there is nothing vain there. It is pure love and gratitude. So
I
don't
received that.
don't use that word anymore. Think of that as a bad
Yes.
word.
Okay. I received that from both you guys. Thanks.
I like the way he put that. It's a bad word. We don't use that on the show.
Right.
Um, for me, it was an interesting path because you know my wife is going through this physical, everyone, myself included, wanting to be there for her, and then there's me going through my journey that I was faced with a lot of criticism and a lot of judgment externally. And the thing, a lot of people thought, I'll just be 100% transparent. There's the Republican, God-loving Catholic Brandon, and that's what everybody knew me as. And I can't tell you how many friends I've lost and things of that because people don't think I believe in God and people don't think I believe in Jesus. And they couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, my relationship has strengthened and deepened with God in this journey. But for those that just wanted to judge it and not, everybody knows I'm an open book. I am such an open book. Anybody that asked me, I don't care if it was a phone call, a text message, an email, Facebook Messenger, anybody that took the time to actually ask, I was more than happy to share and explain what I was going through. Grateful that they asked me versus just assuming or judging and just doing their thing. You know, and two very different journeys in terms of my wife was going through at the same time that I was going through. And part of that, because everybody understands and knows the scariness of the illness and things of that nature, I had to put on the face. What I was going through, because it was internal and it was more mental than the physical sickness, so to speak, you know, it was almost brushed to the side, which is okay. It was meant to be that way, I feel, because why else would two very distinct journeys occur at the exact same time, so to speak? So that was, and again, just one of those things that wouldn't change anything for the world because Stephanie, as you were kind of talking about, who you were and all of that. And we shed our identities. Everything makes us stronger and it should make us stronger. It's okay to reflect. It's okay to grieve. It's okay to look back and appreciate the certain aspects of our lives that we valued and cherished from our past. But we also don't want to let the past define us either. And, like Rita, you said, you are here to live and you weren't living. You know, your son couldn't be more proud of you because you are living. He was probably more upset with you just existing, right? So sometimes it takes, unfortunately, drastic things, but we are all who we are because of those things, and it's to go and share that journey and that message.
I agree. I agree. Did you ever feel pressured to feel strong before you was ready? Did you guys feel that pressure? Like, I know for me, it's like, okay, he's gone. I had to pick up my life. I need to go back to work. Then I'm working with children. So I have to go in here. I have to smile. I have to put on this face. But the reality was I just wanted to be in the bed under the cover yelling and screaming. I was not ready. I think for me, I wasn't ready, and but life, no, I'm gonna rephrase that. But society told me I had to be ready, but I wasn't ready. So my question is to you guys: have you guys felt that, and if so, how did you handle that? And I'll start with Mesha.
When I initially revealed my diagnosis to some people in my church, well, at least it's not cancer. At least you're still alive. Just be grateful. Like, I don't want to hear that, respectfully. I don't want to hear that. Like, I'm going through it. This is not the time for you to give me this random Sunday school lesson. Honest to goodness. So I did feel some pressure from a couple of people, just to keep smiling and doing what I do. But I really had to have a come to Jesus meeting with him. And that's when I realized it's okay to have these feelings. Jesus was angry. He flipped over the table. Jesus wept. That's in the Bible. He had all of the emotions. If that's who I am trying to be like, why can't I have these emotions just like he did? He didn't stay angry. He didn't always cry. So there it is again. It's okay to have these emotions, but just come out. That was my revelation in my talk with Jesus. That's what I got from them. But I did feel initially some pressure from a few people to stay positive and keep looking on the bright side. I wasn't thinking about the bright side then. I was coming up the rough side of the mountain. And, I didn't have time to think about the sunshine and all that. But I did have to have a talk with Jesus who was able to straighten me out.
You said something that just triggered my memory when you said Jesus wept, or I had to have a come to Jesus moment, right? I remember going through my grieving process. If you grew up in an old Baptist church, you was told you couldn't ask God why. Don't question Jesus. Don't ask why, right? That's what it was. And I just remember just carrying all of that in me and everything. Even after getting therapy and getting the mental health treatment that I want, I still had questions and I still carried a little bit of that anger. And it wasn't until probably about 3 years ago, to be honest with you guys, and that's, you just made me recall this. We was getting ordained, and for some odd reason the Lord knew it wasn't my time to be ordained, right? Because I was still carrying something. So the service, our ordination, we had brought the garments. We here, it's my moment, right? And our bishop just had an epiphany of, I'm not going to ordain you guys today. I'm going to name you, and we're going to come back and do this a year from now because I'm going to watch you. And so I'm like, so then Renee Winston comes and she's preaching at our service. And her service was, sometimes I know, no, she said some of you guys have a why in you, right? And she said it's nothing wrong with asking God why. And I promise you, when she said that, I think I was probably the loudest person in that service that day, yelling, "Why did you take this? Like, why did you do this to me?" Because I had never went through that, because again, society told me I was supposed to be ready and I was supposed to move on. But in that service, that's when I was able to ask that why, and it lifted so much. And God knew at that time, hey, He had ordained me. I wouldn't have been right because I still hover. I was mad with God. I'm just a safe space, and I'm gonna tell you, I was mad with God. I was like, why me? I'm doing this. Why? Why? There's so many other people who don't even want, like, why? And so. Yeah, I can totally understand where you're coming from. And in that year when he didn't do that, it was like, okay, I get it. I understand why, And then of course the next year came around and we did the ordination and I was still crying again. It was a moment of crying, but that cry was a different cry of not I'm not ready or why, but like, okay, Lord, I don't want to disappoint you. You got me out here, you got me wearing 20 hats, and I got to do this, and then I got to bring these people, and I have to do. So again, I definitely understand where you coming from when you saying have that come to Jesus moment. Rita.
I was just like, yeah, just listening. Yeah, for me, yeah, pressure as the parent. It was just pressure for ministry, pressure as a parent. Yeah, it was. I was like, well, I gotta gather myself, get myself up. I gotta, I got. But it was just so like, no, I just need a vacation. That's just how I felt like. I just need a vacation. I just need to go somewhere. I just need to go away. I just need to. I just need, and it's like the kids couldn't really understand that. It's just like, mommy, 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 mom, mommy. But it's like, yeah, yeah, it was pressure. It was pressure. But I just wanted to you know what? I just wanted to say, man, just forget this. I just want to go somewhere and just be there. I just want to just go away. That's how I felt. Yeah, that was the pressure. Yeah, for me.
And I hear you. And the biggest thing I'm hearing is it was pressure, but there was a need, right? And nobody knew the need. Nobody understood the need. Nobody saw the need. It was just the pressure. But while I'm being pressured, when does my need come into play? When do I get to have my need? Who
Right,
will give me my need? Who will see my need?
right. I remember this pastor. His name is Pastor Robert Bryant, and he's a prophet. He said to me, he said, it's just like you're just numb. You know, he was talking about because of the death of my son. And I had wanted to go to Kenya, back to Kenya. And he told me, he said, no, it's not time yet. He said, you need to heal some more. It's not time yet for you to go. He said, it's just like you become numb. You became numb. Not that you don't care, but it was like you just became numb. So I said, okay. So I took that time and went back on my healing progress, my process. But yeah, yeah.
Okay. Brandon.
For me, it was the external pressure. I think, not even just on my journey. I'm just going to make this a little bit more general in terms of, we all as a society have allowed external pressure to dictate us, our lives. Just think for example, if you're in corporate America, for example, and you give birth and you have a child, you just spent, 9-ish months carrying and letting this thing grow and develop within you. And society puts the pressure on, depending on where you work, of you should be good to come back to work in 6 to 8 weeks. If you have a death in the family of a loved one, we have allowed society to put pressure on us that you can have 5 days. All of these external pressures and from our outside world that we have just conformed to as a society to allow that external influence. I keep saying that all the time, but we have allowed that to determine who we are, how we live, and how we go about. And it's becoming more aware of that. Each one of us, whether it's the four of us here, anybody who's listening, to start questioning. Rita, I loved your passion on everything that you were questioning. That was everything that I went through. The same thing. Why? Why this? Wait, this doesn't make sense. All of these things. And it's not being judged by when we ask those questions, wanting to find out the truth for ourselves and not be under the pressure externally. Because if we're under that pressure externally, we're under that pressure internally, and we shouldn't be living. We're existing at that point. We are not living at that point. So it's a matter of becoming aware of that around us in terms of that. What if you got that night, yeah, you know what? I've got to follow by those rules. But the more and more of us that become aware of that and start questioning and pushing back, that's when the change can begin to happen to help alleviate some of that external pressure that we have allowed to impact our daily lives.
I agree with you 100% on that. And like you said, society, going back to me saying society, saying I had to be ready, and you're absolutely correct about when you say society makes us feel like we only can take these 5 days or this 6 weeks off work, the pressure. And one of the things that I realized in my life that I started doing this maybe it's been about a year or two that I started this. I will come home from work and I will still be working. I'm off the clock, but I'm still home working, and I'm just and not being able to read a room, right? So while I'm in here working, my family is in their room watching movies. My husband is in the room watching TV and things like that. And then I may get a random text of like, "Hey, you still in there working?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Not realizing that text should have been my clue to wrap it up, close the computer, move on, and honestly, it wasn't until I was in jeopardy of losing everything that I was like, hold up, this. So then it became I had to set those boundaries in place where at 6 o'clock I'm off the clock. When you have my rule is my job having to the time until I pull into my driveway. Once the car enters the driveway, I'm not answering any phone calls. So even though I'm off work, you can get that hour ride home to talk to me. But once I pull up in the driveway, I'm off the clock. I'm not doing that because, again, like you said, society does make us feel like we have to do things, and our no is not. We can't. It's like we can't say no to society, right? But I'm learning. My no is no because guess what? If any of us pass today or tomorrow, what happens? A help wanted sign goes up, right? You're not even in the grave yet, but that help wanted is or the interim person is in your space. So I do agree with you 100%. So thank you guys for sharing. So now looking at the purpose after the pain. What does that look like for you guys? Moving on, what does your life look like now? And I know we talked about going through the pain. We talked about the loss. We talked about grieving. We talked about having to change, and we talked about showing up when we didn't even feel like showing up. But now, what does that look like in your life right now? What does your purpose look like after your pain, Mesha? Can you hear me, Mesha?
My
Uh,
apologies, I had hit you. But it's going to continue my journey now. I'm going to continue to spread the gospel and awareness I'm going to continue to be that light and that beacon of hope for other chronic illness warriors who are feeling at their lowest, who are feeling lonely, who feel that they're not seen or being taken seriously because they might be dealing with an illness that is not physical. They might be dealing with an illness that is more so internal. I'm going to continue to do what I have to do to shed light. I made that promise to God and I'm not stopping. I'm going to continue on.
Right. Rita, what does your purpose after pain looks like for you?
My purpose after pain for me looks like the woman that went to the well, and Jesus was at the well, and the woman came to draw, but Jesus said to her, "Give me something to drink." And she looked at him like, "Wait a minute, you ain't even got nothing to draw." But he said, "If you knew who I was, you'll be asking me for something to drink." And that living water, that out of my belly will flow rivers of living waters. My purpose now is what I went through. It wasn't for me, but it happened to me. But my purpose is to help somebody else. My purpose now is to bring living water. My purpose now to bring life. My purpose is like Jesus. His purpose is always transformation. His purpose is always listen, repent. That the purpose is always listen. There's salvation. Look, there's hope. Listen, even though you went through what you went through, but we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. So my purpose now is to share my testimony as I share the gospel. My purpose now is to live, that I can live for others, that others that know my story and others that have seen what I went through and what I experienced. And they can say, if you've been through that and God brought you out of that and God's hand's still on you, because just like you got people that's even at the well that they look like the woman when she looked at Jesus, like, wait a minute, like you ain't even got nothing to draw. And sometimes people will look at you because of your circumstance or your outer appearance, but they don't know what's on the inside of you. So my purpose is to live to become, that I'm going to continue to become. Just like you said, to let your light shine. I know y'all. It's in me. The preachers is there. It's in me. It's in me. I can't sustain it. It's there. But but it's to live. It's to live that others may live. It's to live to tell my story. It's to live to show others what Jesus has done for me. That look, you can come, you can turn around, listen, you can start with it. Don't even have to go that way. That there is life after death. That there's something have to die in order for something to live. And the thing is this, I want to leave you with this real quick. Just like sometimes we got to go through what we got to go through to experience what's already in the inside of you. To know that what's already in you was already there. Just like this my favorite movie. I know y'all seen it. The Wiz of all. The Wiz. And here it is, you had Dorothy. You had Dorothy, you had the Tin Man, you had the Scarecrow, and you had the Lion. And here it is, Dorothy come to a place. First she ended up in a munching land when she inherited some shoes. So here it is. I'm going to make it quick, try to go through this real quick. I'm to my point. But here it is. All the time, the very thing that she was looking for was already in the inside of her. The very thing that it had a trial had to come. A trial had to come. So even on her being shift, because when the wind comes to shift our situation. When the wind comes, there's always a storm that shift. It's a storm before, it's a storm during, and it's a storm after. And the thing is going through the storm and going through that storm, and when the storm comes, it's going to shift everything. So here it is, you got Dorothy, you got the Tin Man, you got the Lion, and you got the Scarecrow. One needed a heart, one needed a brain, and one said, I need a carriage. But because of circumstance and situation and trials that happen, guess what? The very thing that they thought they need was already inside of them. All they needed was a circumstance to happen. Guess what? They became in unity and they begin to walk in love. That's all I'm gonna say right there.
They needed a shift. The wind came and he shifted, and that's what
Better
it is.
say
They needed a shift. They needed a shift. I got you there. Brandon.
it.
How am I supposed to follow that? Come on now. Come on. For me, my purpose is to build. I love numerology, and my numbers break down to a builder number. And the ironic thing is I didn't know that, and I was building things long before I came and was made aware of what my numerology was. I love to build. I build community. I build love. I build everything for myself. I build it for those around me. I build it for my family. I love to build things. It's fun to build. And whether that's businesses, whether that's love, whether that's hope, I build. And that is my purpose. And that is what I'm going to continue to do. It has been absolutely humbling to be here with you all. And thank you all for being so vulnerable.
Thank you. I know one of the things that I've learned, someone said to me when my son passed away was, you don't look like what you've been through. And that stuck with me because the person who said it was somebody who back in the day we didn't like each other, we didn't get along, we wasn't there, we wasn't there. But in that moment when they reached out to me and they spoke to me, for them to say to me, you don't look like what you've been through, I said, wow. And so, because it took one person to tell me that, I had to go look in the mirror, like you said earlier, Brandon, and I had to look at myself. And I started looking like, do I look like what I've been through? And I had to, and it amazing, somebody told me something that I had to get in my mind and I had to adapt because it took my son death and that wind, like you said, to shake something up to get inside me that was already there, right? So now when I'm walking and I'm wearing the many hats that I wear, one of the things that I find fascinating is how you could be in a situation and somebody want to start talking about somebody else's situation, right? And as they're talking about that situation, they never know that you was the same person walking in that person's shoes. So I listen to them talk, and then I'll say to them, "Well, what do I look like?" And then they'll say, "Well, you have it," and I'm like, "No, I wasn't them. I was worse." And they, so I carry that with me. I don't look like what I've been through. So before I speak and judge on other people, I have to remember that I don't look like what I've been through. And just because they look like they're going through a circumstances, it may not be that circumstances. So my purpose after my pain is to lift others up and not tear them down. My purpose after pain is to let people know that where you're right now doesn't decide your future. My purpose now is to let people know that there is hope at the end of the light and at the end of the tunnel. And my purpose now is to bring people to the table to share their story so that we're able to get our stories out there so that we're able to touch someone. So I thank you so much for joining me tonight and being at the table and sharing your story. But before I let you guys go, there's a question I like to ask all of my guests, and that is, what is something that you're picking up from the table, or what is something that you're leaving at the table? And I'll start with Brandon.
I am picking up the courage and the power and the badassery from all three of you this evening, and I am taking that energy and that motivation and that wisdom that I have received and going to take that with me going forward. So thank you all.
Thank you. Mesha?
I agree. I appreciate everyone pouring into me and encouraging me as well with your words and being transparent and also allowing me to speak my piece. I'm taking away everything. I love the Wizard of Oz reflect. I love that. I love your vulnerability, Mr. Brandon, and I love that you are able to be a caregiver for your wife. So I am taking all of this in, as well as you, Miss Stephanie. I am taking everything in, all the jewels.
Thank you. Rita?
Where I'm picking up is sitting at the table. That's what I'm picking up. That sometimes what we think what sitting at the table look like might not be what it look like.
Mhm.
But there is a seat at the table. And there's a seat at the table. And I listen, what you doing and helping others tell their story, that is helping others and bring light and sharing light and bringing healing and deliverance to others and transformation. Yeah, that's what I'm picking up. I'm picking
You
up.
gonna make me cry.
I'm picking up. Listen, I'm picking up a seat at the table.
Thank you.
Listen, all y'all stories. Look, I don't really like doing lives. I don't even like doing Zooms. I don't like. Look, ain't that somehow God called you and you don't like doing all that, right? But it's bringing me more and more out my comfort zone. So this right here is even an experiment because I used to do a show called My Life, My Story, God's Glory, where I had people come on and they tell their testimony and how they overcame by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. So I'm picking up a seat at the table, and guess what? And I'm just letting go all my shyness, all my fear, and I'm picking back up where I left off at. But
Leave
it'll
that
be
stuff
better.
at the table. Leave it at the
Yes.
table. Thank you guys again. Before I let you go, Brandon, can you tell people where they can find you at if someone wanted to book you?
Absolutely. My website is theawakencrowd.com. All of my coaching services are on there. You can book and all of that directly through there. I also am a podcaster. I've done over 350 podcasts myself, two different topics. I did a NASCAR podcast for almost 8 years, and I have a spiritual podcast as well. It's called The Awakened Crowd. And then I also published a children's bedtime story that is available on Amazon called Alden and the Light That Blinked Back after my son. So thank you again. Thank you for the support. If anybody resonated with what I said and would love to reach out, I'm happy to chat with anybody.
Brandon, feel free to send us an invite for that podcast.
Absolutely.
That's an invite. Rita, can you tell our viewers where they can find you at?
Y'all can Facebook me. You can DM me, Rita Taylor. Look, I got a lot of pages. Just hit all of them. You can email. You can email me at laugh, live life, and love lipstick. Oh yeah, that's my motto, y'all too. I laugh, live life, and love lipstick, right? Because I love lipstick. And look, so I'm into the beauty business and health and wellness. So you can just or you can email me at my other email, theotherside2022@gmail.com.
Thank you. I love it. Mesha, can you tell our fans where they can reach you at?
Sure. I am on Facebook, Mesha McLean Official. And I'm also on TikTok as well as Instagram under Mesha_McLean. I would love to have you to follow my journey. Also an author of a book of poetry that I wrote called Diary of a Lupus Baddie, poems about my lupus journey, and also an affirmations journal called Talk to You Nice, because again, we need to pour to ourselves and gives ourselves grace.
Thank you. I love it. Well, thank you guys again for joining. And thank you to our audience that will watch this recording. We pray that someone will leave. They may come in empty, but they will leave full. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at A Seat at the Table 7205. And guys, just to let you know, this will not be your last time at the table. I will have you guys on again, pulling up a seat at the table. Thank you for joining and have a great night.